Global manufacturing teams face complex challenges when rolling out digital transformation initiatives. Large companies tend to have very complex technical architectures that have been incrementally growing over time, which make it difficult to change existing processes. VR has the ability to bring teams from around the world to the same virtual space to collaborate on the same project. Masters of Pi enables legacy enterprise software to support real-time collaboration through VR and AR and transform the way companies manufacture products. Karl, how is Masters of Pi revolutionizing the manufacturing process?
By years of dealing with the end user and the customer, I think, by listening to what they actually need.
What's been the first most successful use case?
The early adopters were in engineering and manufacturing, I think. Those guys were used to certainly working with heavy 3D data prior to virtual reality and augmented reality. So for them, it was almost a no-brainer to make the shift from a 2D environment to a virtual immersive environment. When you're rocking up to a business with a nice shiny virtual reality application, it's easy for them to get wowed by what they see on the surface. But really, I think some of the meaty problems for us lay underneath. So problems of data transfer, collaboration, deployment, the ability for them to adopt it at scale, I think is the fundamental kind of blocker that we set out to tackle with Radical.
So how does that workflow look for a manufacturer and designer versus what's going on today?
Well, for instance, we've just finished a project called the Hyperbat project, which is a 5G private network test case, but that is kind of tackling the use cases of design to manufacture handover. So we have one group in one company doing the design, that's Williams Advanced Engineering. They're designing using CAD software. And they have to then hand over that design to the manufacturer at Unipart, which has a factory. In this case, it's in Coventry. And I think that traditionally they're using spreadsheets and Zoom calls and telephone calls, and it's a very messy affair, and it gets ping-ponged back and forward between the two groups.
And I'm sure mistakes and breakage and loss and delays.
Yeah, and also lost in translation. They fundamentally speak different languages, right? So what I think virtual reality allows them to do is kind of have a level playing field when it comes to the interactivity mimics what they would do in the real world. If you want to talk about a 3D object in the real world, you point at it, you lean in, you walk around. All of those interactivity kind of models already exist in the real world. Having them replicated in kind of virtual reality certainly helps their conversation between two kind of different skilled groups.
There's been a promise for a long time of VR and AR transforming workflows across all industries. Why hasn't it happened yet?
Well, there's always an element of hype with any new technology, and the promise is always there. I think it will deliver on the promise, certainly with augmented reality. Everyone's got their eye on that as being the big game changer, not just in industry, but even consumers as well. The idea of all of us walking around with lightweight, nice, sexy glasses on, it's a promise that I think eventually will get there. I think the price right now of some of these hardware devices, not so much in VR now, that seems to be starting to be solved with kind of low-powered devices, but augmented reality is still, in the multiple thousands per unit. So I think once the price starts to come down, you'll start to see more adoption. And also I think as the advent of things like cloud computing, streaming, edge compute, 5G and Wi-Fi 6, the ability to stream information to an underpowered device means that they can start to become dumbed down and therefore cheaper. There's a lot of emerging technology that needs to kind of come together all at once to overcome some of these barriers, I think.
And Masters of Pi has been able to integrate and work with a lot of legacy enterprise software. And so those big legacy systems are not so easily to be integrated with. So what was the process that you did to achieve that?
It started by listening to the customers. I mean, in the early days, we were going with kind of standalone applications and saying, hey, this is a nice, shiny thing. Go and look at your data into it. But of course, you're asking them to export their data from all of their layers of security right now. I mean, the fact is they've spent decades building up software pipelines and layers of security and data repositories. They're not just going to suddenly bin those overnight, no matter how nice and shiny your application is, right? So it was quite evident to us early on that the way to tackle this problem was to bring our capabilities to the data. And the best way to achieve that is by a kind of a close integration into the software they already use. We are totally data agnostic, so we have 2D data running through there just as happily as 3D data. So by the integration being agnostic as well, we're able to spread ourselves into multiple different touch points within a business.